Hi, today we're going to go through the seated good morning progression. There's seated good mornings, standing good mornings, but the main purpose behind this exercise is to learn where our hips are and how to move them without moving anything else. It's a differentiation exercise. If we want to control where load goes in our bodies with squats, lunges, running, any lower body exercise of any form, we need to understand where the areas are, where the parts are, so that we can choose when we're applying load to one area versus another. Starting with the seated variation gives us a little bit more control than the standing variation. I'm going to show the movement a few different ways. Now, all of us demonstrating exercises usually do so because we've practiced them and understand them. So find a good setup that you can double check yourself. It could be a mirror to your side like I've got here. You might be able to set your phone up to double check your form, but it's important to not guess as we're trying to develop better neuromuscular control. This exercise is incredibly hard for most people when they start. Just the movement. It's not a strength movement, it's not a loaded exercise yet, but it is one of control. And that means we've got to pay a lot of attention and we've got to be really focused on where things are coming from, moving slow enough that we can tell when we're not doing it right. I like to put my hands on my pelvis. The hip here is defined as where your leg connects to your pelvis. So any place that your leggings, shorts, anything might crease is where the hip joint is. I've got my hands on my pelvis, when people might call their hip bones, but these are the edges of my pelvis. That's going to help demonstrate where my pelvis is in space. The idea here is to do absolutely nothing with your spine, zero with your back. You're not moving it, you're not squeezing it, you're not bracing it. This is not a core exercise. You're just leaving it alone. It's a whole other category of just doing nothing with that area. For example, I'm also leaving my feet alone. They're just sitting on the floor. I'm not gripping the floor. I'm not lifting them or pushing, nothing. Just leave them there. Leave your spine there. Your spine is connected to your pelvis. So when we perform the movement, which is going to be inclining us forwards, your spine, your torso is just going to naturally follow. And then we return back to our start position. Within this movement, it's really important that we're not just thinking about coming forward and back, because as I exaggerate that, coming forward, we might think, oh yeah, I've got a really good control of this movement here. What I've actually done is pulled my chest forward, which is an arching of the lower back. As we incline our hips forward, you can also think about these pelvis bones being here in line with your shoulders. They should follow each other at the same rate. As this tips forward, these follow along. They're not gonna fall behind, they're not gonna fall ahead. This is like one box that starts at the bottom of our pelvis, the bottom of our sits bones, and works all the way up. I'm not feeling engagement of any substantial form in my core, in my back, just moving. Some people like to try it instead with their hands above their head. A cue I often give is you should feel your sits bones kind of rock off the edge of the surface, and you should be able to keep your ribs in with you. Again, we're not squeezing them in, we're just leaving them there. We're just not letting them flare forwards. Your rib cage is connected to your spine, so if you do that well, you're much less likely to be using your back to lift and lower you. Speaking of where we're lifting and lowering from, where am I supposed to feel this? Well, it's not supposed to be a big movement because we don't have any load on it, but where it is supposed to come from is our hip extensors. We have pretty much two options of what can bring us back up. It's our back and our hips, just based on physics. You might feel yourself gripping through your quads or your hamstrings, but their main job is to control the knee, and your knee isn't moving. So they're not the primary working muscle here. What is the primary working muscle here, if we do this really well, is our glutes. If you're coaching this exercise or trying to check yourself after, from this bottom position where I might pause to make sure I'm gonna do it from the right place, drive my feet into the floor, you should see that the first thing that actually engages is my glute muscle. And I might do a couple holds here to really feel my glutes, and then make sure as I push into the ground, they're what brings me back. If we think down and up, we're much more likely to try to do that movement with our spine. We don't want to. Keep everything in the glutes here. On the way down, we're just controlling the lowering, and then we're pushing back up. Oftentimes I see people kind of do these squeezes where we end up kind of lifting off the box. We don't want to get super focused, I guess, on squeezing everything from our glutes. We're trying to create a movement, but we shouldn't really be seeing that we're gripping all throughout our pelvis or our inner thighs or our legs or our back or just a bunch of stuff in general. Your neck, jaw, shoulders shouldn't be clenching through this movement. They're not attached to the parts that we're trying to move. We're really trying to keep things isolated into these hip extensors right here. As we then go to progress and make sure we're using multiple ranges of the hips, more of the whole glute tissue, we're gonna add a band here. We might see a lot of bands, booty bands in the gym and whatnot, but using them for the right purpose can really facilitate where the load is going. The booty band's job is not really, or the band, however you wanna think about it, isn't really to create the load here. It's to control where the load is going by giving us something to think about. So as we keep our feet flat without letting our toes move or rock, lift, grip, anything, leave them alone like we said before. We're gonna just push out enough on the band where it requires a little bit of work to be here. We're then gonna hold that exact same amount of tension as we come into our good morning and as we push back up. And this is helping us to get more of these lateral fibers rather than just the vertical fibers of the glutes. So you should feel kind of more of the real estate loading and moving us. Again, this is still not a really tough exercise when it comes to load, but it is tough when it comes to control. How far forward should we go? Just far enough where we still have the control. So for right now, that looks like here. That's fine. That's where we go. If you've got a little bit more room, that's fine. If it's not very far at all, that's fine. The whole point is to create an awareness and a connection to these muscles. So if you cross that line where you lose the form, you aren't going to find it. It's not going to be something your body's able to compare and contrast. So by paying a lot of attention and saying, okay, where am I? Maybe we check our mirror to see what's happening. Where am I feeling it as I start to get tired? All of that really helps us out. To take it up into an exercise that we can either integrate into our workouts or build a little bit of muscle tissue here, practicing with a bit of load. I've got 16 kilos, about 35 pounds in front of me. Make sure it's hanging in your arms. We're not lifting it, we're not shrugging it. We want everything that's uninvolved to be uninvolved. I usually tell people to pick their weight up and make sure they start at the top. I find it easier to create the movement from this start position versus starting all the way down in the bottom, because you might not have access to that angle at your hips. Arms are so relaxed and the weight is just hanging between our legs. We're gonna create the same rocking as we allow our hips to deepen. Find that bottom that we can control. Picture we've got the band back on. Push and return ourselves to the start position. As we add weight, you're more likely to feel a little bit more of the gripping, bracing, and stability function of your thigh muscles, including your quads. That's all right. We just want the main working muscle to be the hip extensors. Don't worry about touching the floor. The floor has nothing to do with you here. I'm gonna do 3 more. Other variations that we could try might involve putting one foot forward to really focus on one hip, and then building it into a squat with the next progression in this series.